Written and directed by Emerald Fennell, 2026's Wuthering Heights. I felt an intense need to talk about this film because it left a lasting impression on me. And that doesn't happen very often these days, you know? I went in there completely blind. Haven't even watched the trailer, so I wasn't expecting much. In fact, I was expecting entertaining trash at best. But what I got instead really surprised me in a positive way, because I think this is actually a really good and genuinely romantic film. I would even go as far as to say that it could be in my top 5 movies of the year. But first of all, it's a feast for the eyes. This film is a piece of art. It's one of those films, you know, every frame, every shot is staged like an art piece. You could make a screenshot at any time in the film, and you will get a picture that you could put on your wall. You know, you could frame and put up on your wall because it's that beautiful. The color grading and the contrasts, you know, between rainy, dark scenery and really popping colors, popping red and black and gold, and it's so colorful, and it creates an intense atmosphere, you know. And I think there are a lot of pretty creative visual ideas in this film. They did some interesting stuff I won't give away, but very creative. And this, along with an amazing set design, creates an intense atmosphere. It feels like a fairy tale. It's a little more beautiful than real life, but we are still on Earth. So I love this. It's a very balanced mood, you know, and amazing visuals. A feast for the eyes, as I said. So that alone would be a reason to enjoy this film, even if you aren't into the story or the characters. So let's talk about the characters, because they are actually great. And that's another thing that really surprised me about this film, how likable those characters really are, how believable their relationship is, and how believable their romance is. It's very intense, it's very well acted. Those characters, you know, they meet each other as children, and they spend their childhood together, but they are experiencing a lot of abuse, both of them, because they suffer from an abusive father, and they experience some pretty dark stuff, some pretty dark abusive stuff. And to survive all of this, they form an intense bond with each other. They stick together like best friends, like brothers and sisters, and later even lovers. And because it's their only way to survive. And this bond they are forming, this relationship that gets more intense with every year that passes by, it becomes a little obsessive. Not a little, it becomes really obsessive. And later in life, they start to inflict, you know, those damages they experienced themselves from the abuse they were going through. They inflict those things on each other. They reflect what they experienced in their childhood days, and stuff like that happens every day in life. And I love to see a film about this. You know, some would argue that it gets a little melodramatic at times, but I think that's necessary. And I don't have a problem with this at all. I think critics these days can be very cynical, especially when it comes to romance films, you know, films about love and relationships and the dark side of love. And I think a lot of people these days have a problem taking those things seriously. Like, you know, they ridicule those kind of films, and more often than not. And I think that's not fair at all. I think it's a very intense relationship and a very believable one, as I said. And I think it's I really love to see this. It, you know, it progresses into something very abusive and toxic, and that's not easy to watch at times. It gets really disturbing. I won't give anything away because that's a non-spoiler thing, but it gets very hurtful, and yeah, pretty rough. And with this progression into darkness and abusiveness, um, the whole mood of the film changes a lot. It gets darker, and you know, the set pieces change and stuff, the color grading. Um, yeah, that's not easy to watch, and I especially enjoyed the first half of the film uh, because it's so intense and believable and so likable. How they bond with each other, you know, how they stick together, and I even caught myself, you know, having a little tear in my eye because yeah, I was just moved by their relationship. So I really enjoyed this first half. The second half is amazing, but it's not easy to watch. Um, yeah, so maybe a little melodramatic at times, but I think that's a choice. You know, that's a stylistic choice, and I like that. There's great dialogue, and it's all very dramatic, and yeah, it really got to me, you know. And there's larger than life music. Charlie XCX's soundtrack perfectly fits the whole mood of the film. Um, I enjoyed those tracks long before I've seen the film. Um, Came out a little earlier, and I think yeah, it's perfect. So overall, this is an intense film. I think it's not style over substance. It's a very stylish film. It looks like an art piece, but it also has amazing characters, believable relationships. There's a lot of depth to the whole thing and substance. And I think this film, yeah, it has both elements. And yeah, and also the music and the set pieces. It's overall, I loved everything about this film. And yeah, as I said, I would even go as far as to say it could be one of my top 3 films of the year even. So maybe I was able to convince you to give this a try, to watch it at the cinema, and maybe you will enjoy it just as much as I did. Thank you for watching, and see you very soon.